Based on this advice, which we very carefully considered, the government has decided that the current measures must remain in place for at least the next 3 weeks.
Well, shit, looks like we're going to need more than a few films to keep us occupied then. Turns out we may have to stay indoors longer than anticipated, so here's a few series for you to try out. In the last video, only one of them was available on Netflix, so I've tried to make these a bit more accessible to you. Now let's start off with an obvious one. There is a reason this show gets recommended all the goddamn time. It's literally that good, and if you haven't seen it, now is the perfect time to get into it. Walter White is a chemistry teacher diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer, and he teams up with an ex-student to start making methamphetamine to fund his treatment. It's the story of a good guy becoming a drug lord. I'm aware of a few people who started to watch Breaking Bad but then gave up because they said it was too slow for them. This ain't Game of Thrones, okay? Game of Thrones aged like milk. Breaking Bad ages like a fine wine. It gets better and better as the seasons go on. And don't forget, if you finish Breaking Bad and you're suffering from withdrawal symptoms, there's the show Better Call Saul, which is a prequel following the sleazy lawyer Saul Goodman.
Better Call Saul!
And then there's the film El Camino, which picks up exactly where Breaking Bad left off. All in all, this is arguably the best TV series ever made. If you've never watched it, do yourself a favour and go watch it. And if you have already seen it, fuck it, watch it again. BoJack Horseman is just one of those shows that does everything right. When it's funny, it's hilarious. When it's sad, it's heartbreaking. And when it's good, it's fucking incredible. BoJack is a washed-up actor who peaked in the 90s with his sitcom Horsing Around. Now he's an alcoholic who struggles with addiction, depression, and the general direction of his career. The animation is beautiful, the comedy is filled to the brim with these ridiculous animal puns, and the show isn't afraid to experiment from an almost dialogue-free underwater episode to a completely dialogue-filled episode that takes place entirely during a funeral eulogy. You know, for a series filled with anthropomorphic animals, the characters are some of the most human I've ever seen in a show. They all have flaws and actively try and fix them. If you don't cry laughing, you'll cry from sadness, but more likely than not, you'll do both.
You are all the things that are wrong with you. It's not the alcohol or the drugs or any of the shitty things that happened to you in your career or when you were a kid. It's you. All right? It's you. Fuck, man. What else is there to say?
A dysfunctional family, a mind constantly thinking about sex, and an intimate relationship with a priest. Nope, it's not my teenage years, it's Fleabag. Phoebe Waller-Bridge plays the titular character navigating her way through life, dealing with tragedy, mending and maintaining relationships, and delivering the occasional fourth wall-breaking snarky comment.
The next man who walks in here is getting ridden to death. Dad!
Hi.
Not ideal.
Fleabag is funny, it's clever, it's charming. The only thing I don't like about this series is how short it is, 12 episodes across 2 seasons, and yet in such a short space of time we watch Fleabag grow, mature and flourish. We laugh with her, we cry with her, and by Christ we cringe with her.
Please raise your hands if you would trade 5 years of your life for the so-called perfect body.
We're bad feminists.
Hold tight, this could be a wild ride. It could be a late night. And it's an underdog, yeah, who's gonna be the lucky one?
Harry Clayton, played by hometown hero James Nesbitt, is a detective inspector with an addiction to gambling. After a one-night stand, he wakes up with a bracelet attached to his wrist, which grants him the power of luck. However, fortune is a fickle friend, and luck always balances itself out. Every time Clayton uses the bracelet to his advantage, a stroke of bad luck will also befall him. I personally am such a fan of high concept ideas like The Purge, the invention of lying, Nerve, and unfortunately a lot of them are poorly executed, but not this one. The story is gripping, dark and intriguing, and I constantly find myself immersed in the mystery surrounding the bracelet and its capabilities. The goings on in a working men's club in Bolton. The Phoenix Club is owned by the wheelchair-bound Brian Potter, and the show follows him and the other staff of the club as they try and boost the club's profile and revenue. From a Wild West night in which a horse gets pished and tries to put the buck in bronco.
Oh my God. What's he doing? Can he pull it off?
You what?
To a shite psychic who accuses one of the customers of being a paedophile.
Now, I'm getting the word nonce.
Phoenix Nights is for sure a cult favourite in the UK from the mind of Peter Kay. I understand that his stand-up comedy isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I promise this show is criminally funny. The only issue is that it's stupidly difficult to get a hold of. I have yet to see it on any on-demand or streaming services, but I promise you it is worth the search.
Well, what do you think?
It's not a castle.
It's not what it looks, Brian.
It's not how it looks. It's a 20-foot cock and balls, man. It don't look like nothing else.
All calls featured are real and performed by one man. The Phone Jacker.
Prank calls. That's it. That's all this show is. Just some guy with a sharp wit and a knack for doing voices prank calling other people. But merciful Christ, it is one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. A sleazy car salesman, a Ugandan phone scammer, an Indian telemarketer, even an automated property service. The episodes literally just depict prank call after prank call.
So it's DFS, not DERBS?
DFC.
No, it's just known as DFS, sir.
DFC.
No, sir. DFS.
DFC.
No, sir. Can you just forget everything we've said? The letters DFS is just the name. There is no pronunciation of it.
DFC.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
The visual presentation adds to the largely audio-based comedy between static characters and literal subtitles and live-action recreations of the events described in the prank call. This series is similar to Phoenix Nights in terms of the difficulty of obtaining it. It is available to purchase and it is 100% worth it.
Sir, we need your bank account details.
You need my bank account details?
Yes.
How's about this? Fuck off.
Is that the sort code, sir?
Well, that's us. I've given you like 6 or 7 different series for you to binge watch, so if I hear any of you complaining that there's nothing to watch, I will personally break quarantine to come and batter 50 Shades of Shite out of you. Don't break quarantine though. First it was films, now TV series. I mean, God help me if this lockdown continues, I'll probably have to recommend wrestling or something. Thank you to everyone who watched the last video and anyone who watches this one. Ironically, me recommending shit for you to watch during quarantine is helping me get through it, so thank you. Bye!